Brown is in jail without bond, charged with murder. He is a convicted felon. He is homeless. His mother told us that Brown lives with schizophrenia, and CMPD says officers have had multiple run-ins with him before dealing with his mental health. Brown's attorney plans to file a motion to evaluate his competency.
Yes, DeCarlo Brown, who savagely butchered the Ukrainian refugee on the train in Charlotte, North Carolina. The local public transportation commuter train. And the Democrats, they love the murderer. They're all about the murder. Wait till you hear this, media and beyond, the love of the murderer. They're always on the side of the murderer. They love George Floyd and Luigi Mangione and Dzhokhar Tsarnaev and Ryan Ruth, and now they love DeCarlos Brown. By the way, DeCarlos is not a name known to any culture anywhere, but might be a clue on the way to the scene of the crime. There's also another story I want to slip in right here, because this is kind of an amazing story. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. Now, I think, didn't President Trump fire the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he said they keep screwing up the jobs numbers? And the media became very angry, said, oh, no, a government employee was like, oh, we've only got 18 million more. But they very, very angry. Now, we've got an update, and we have been tracking this for years. When Joe Biden was president, and for that matter, when Barack Obama was president, they'd come out with jobs numbers, and they'd say, oh, Barack Obama, Joe Biden created 1 million jobs. And then a month later, 6 weeks later, on a Friday, they'd quietly slip a piece of paper under the door, said, oh, those numbers weren't quite right. Actually created 15,000 jobs, not 900,000 jobs, right? Well, there's an update here. The Bureau of Labor Statistics revises its previous job growth figures, suggesting the economy was weaker under President Biden during his last few months in office than initially reported. Employers created 911,000 fewer jobs from April of 2024. This is during the campaign season in 2024, and the permanent bureaucracy, the deep state, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Listen to this. The Bureau of Labor Statistics said that the Biden administration created 911,000 jobs that were never created from April of 2024 through March of 2025. Now, that is President Trump, of course, was inaugurated January of 2025, January 20th. And so then they put out the numbers March of 25. And they're like, oh, look, Joe Biden's creating hundreds of thousands of jobs. And now, and only now, here in September of 2025, the Bureau of Labor Statistics comes out with revised numbers. And Alex Salvi has this on his X account, his Twitter account. And the employers, in fact, created 911,000 fewer jobs from April of 2024, campaign season, through March of 2025 than believed. So the Bureau of Labor Statistics was off by nearly 1 million jobs. And President Trump, I think, fired the head of the BLS, as we call it here, the Bureau of Labor Statistics. And he didn't like the Bureau of Labor Statistics because he said that their numbers were a mess. And here we go again, after the media expressed their anger, their fury with President Trump. But isn't that amazing? Even the Washington Post, with their headline 29 minutes ago, BLS revises job numbers down by 911,000 in annual revision. But the fake numbers served Joe Biden and the Democrats very well on the lead up to Election Day in November of 2024, right? An ABC News headline, U.S. economy added 911,000 fewer jobs than previously reported. Listen to this. In largest ever revision. Downward revision appears to be largest ever recorded. I've been making notes on the radio, making note of on the radio for years, the way the Bureau of Labor Statistics comes up with their numbers, and then they later, when nobody's looking, they release the numbers with great fanfare. And then later, weeks later, sometimes when nobody's looking, they revise the numbers downward, and the news media doesn't pay any attention to that because they are living in service of the Democrat Party. The U.S. Employers added far fewer jobs in 2024. Joe Biden was president. And early 2025, for the first 2 months, than previously thought, indicating the labor market may have been significantly weaker than initial estimates had suggested. Notice in the lead of the story, they don't mention Biden and how it benefited the Democrats. They don't mention how this was used against Trump, that the job market was so great and healthy, and I'm sure they use the word robust because they like that word, robust. The U.S. economy, ABC News again, the U.S. economy added 911,000 fewer jobs over the 12 months ending in March, that March of 2025. President Trump had been in office for, a month and a half, came in January of 2025, February, March. So President Trump, they come up with the numbers in March, than previously estimated. So the economy added 911,000 fewer jobs over the 12 months ending in March of 2025 than previously estimated, the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics said on Tuesday. The figure, which exceeded economists' expectations. Oh, isn't this great? Joe Biden's creating more jobs than the economists had projected, more than they had even hoped for. This is so great. Vote for Joe Biden. The Bureau of Labor Statistics put out the fake numbers. The news media loved the fake numbers. They adored the fake numbers. They got into a hot tub with the fake numbers. The figure, which exceeded economists' expectations, appeared to be the largest revision ever recorded. The preliminary estimate will be finalized next year. That's your government for you. Oh, last year's numbers? We'll have those for you next year when they're finalized. The revision, a routine step in the compilation of government labor statistics, assesses monthly survey estimates alongside state unemployment data. The fresh data comes weeks after President Trump fired Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner Erica, and her name is McIntyre. What is it? It is McIntyre. That's what it is. That's why that's actually how it's spelled. But I've never heard of anybody called McIntyre before. McIntyre, Mac and this, Mac and that, but not McIntyre. But Erica McIntyre, the head of Bureau of Labor Statistics, was fired in response to weak monthly jobs report. Now, actually, she was fired because she paid no attention to what her boss told her to do, and because her agency kept putting out fake numbers that turned out to be wrong later. Kind of a big deal. The scale of the revision announced on Tuesday exceeds a downward reduction in hiring estimates last year that had drawn criticism from Trump in recent weeks. Wait a minute. You mean President Trump pointed out that this government agency gets it wrong all the time? And maybe you guys at ABC News should have been ahead of the curve on this. What's the matter with you people? In that case, the Bureau of Labor Statistics said in August of 2024 that U.S. employers had hired 818,000 fewer workers over a previous year-long period. When Trump fired McIntyre last month, hours after the release of monthly jobs data, he mentioned frustration with the annual revision issued in 2024. Now, so once again, here's what's going on here. President Trump was right again about the Bureau of Labor Statistics and the bad numbers they put out, and how the bad numbers actually worked to the benefit of Joe Biden and then Kamala Harris and the Democrats. The Democrat nominee, the Democrats running for Senate, the Democrats running for House, the Democrats running for governor, the Democrats running for President of the United States, Kamala Harris, and Tim Walz as Vice President of the United States. Because, hey, look at all these great jobs numbers coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and only now how long after the election and how long after the inauguration. Now we learn that the numbers that the Bureau of Labor Statistics put out on the lead up to Election Day were fake, but they helped Joe Biden, they helped Kamala Harris, they helped the Democrats, and they were wrong, false, maybe even a lie. Isn't that an amazing story? Yes, it is. Our Democrat Party, revised their previous job growth figures. The economy was much weaker under President Biden during his last few months in office than initially reported. Employers created fewer jobs than the Bureau of Labor Statistics had reported, 911,000 fewer jobs. Isn't that amazing? All right, now let's get back to the Democrats' love of violence and crime and stabbings and all of that. Now, the Charlotte murder, this is a headline actually from the White House website, whitehouse.gov, and they put this out yesterday. Charlotte murder exposes Democrat failures after career criminal freed by woke policies. Now, get a load of this. Horrifying video released on Friday, weeks after the actual murder, shows the moment an innocent woman was brutally murdered on a train in Charlotte, North Carolina, a shocking act of evil that didn't have to happen, the White House statement says. The deranged monster had been arrested again and again for violent crimes spanning more than a decade. Despite that lengthy rap sheet, mental health issues, and forfeiting bonds on 3 occasions, so he's out on bond 3 different times, a Democrat judge released him back onto the streets following his most recent arrest in January, free to slaughter an innocent woman just months later. Now, and the woman, of course, a 23-year-old who is Ukrainian, who fled the war in Ukraine as a refugee, came to the United States. The Democrats pretend to care about Ukraine and about Ukrainians. They pretend to care about immigrants. They pretend to care about refugees. And then their policies get them butchered by mentally ill, deranged career criminal savages that the Democrats put back on the street again. And the White House statement says that has become the norm in Democrat-run cities where radical left policies like no cash bail and defund the police put depraved career criminals back on the streets, free to continue raping, pillaging, and killing their way through our nation. This is the White House statement. It's the culmination of North Carolina's Democrat politicians, prosecutors, and judges prioritizing woke agendas that fail to protect their citizens when they need them the most. So isn't this amazing? In 2020, the Charlotte City Council, Democrats, launched an initiative to reimagine policing. Yeah, you should reimagine gender again. Isn't that amazing? Yeah, so they're reimagining policing. That's what they're doing. And the White House put this statement up. 2020, then Governor Roy Cooper, Democrat, established a task force for racial equity in criminal justice, co-chaired by then Attorney General and current Governor Josh Stein, which recommended reimagining public safety to promote diversion and other alternatives to arrests, to de-emphasize some felony crimes, to prioritize restorative justice, and to eliminate cash bail for many crimes. This is what Democrats do, and they put the crazy, mentally ill, career criminals, dangerous people on the streets to murder. And that's what we have in this case. Now, I want to talk to you for a moment about living a better digital life, with one of our newest partners who we love, WebRoot. I chose WebRoot because of the total protection product that WebRoot offers. WebRoot's all-in-one package, and this is great stuff, offers plan options for individuals like yourself, allowing for coverage of up to 5 devices or up to 10 devices with the family package that WebRoot offers. They've got you covered no matter what. WebRoot's coverage includes antivirus protection, identity theft protection, VPN backup, and a whole lot more. And listen, you've got the kids on the iPad and on the phones. You got grandma up in the in-law suite with the iPad. Whether you're an adult, a toddler, whatever device you use, they've got you covered at WebRoot. WebRoot allows for my best girl and I to live a better digital life, and that's why I want to recommend that you do the same. Right now, because we hang out, you can get 50% off, half off of WebRoot's Total Protection Plan or WebRoot's Essentials Plan when you go to webroot.com/plant. Again, 50% off. Because we hang out, have WebRoot's Total Protection Plan, WebRoot's Essentials Plan, when you go to webroot.com/plant. Yes, sir. All right, now I still haven't got Van Jones, the communist, and Charlie Kirk tees it up for us. That's coming up. And the news media, they're not really a legitimate news media at all. All right, let's go to the telephones, Michael. And you want to stick around for this audio. It's pretty crazy stuff. And the mayor there, a Democrat. Let's go to Tad, calling from Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. Tad, you're on the Chris Plant Show.
Chris, it is a pleasure to be on your show. Greetings from Hilton Head Island, sir.
Very nice.
On the subject, it's a war on whites. And why aren't these judges being held responsible? We witnessed something down in Savannah. We take a Sprinter van over to the Savannah Bananas. Twice we've been broken into. Twice we've confronted these criminals. And they get arrested. We have the police on them. They get arrested. And then they're released hours later. It's the war on white. You see it in every city. Savannah is awful. Charlotte. But I wanted to know your opinion. And when will these judges be held responsible?
Well, and when will black leadership step up and say anything, or if the so-called black leadership, Barack Obama, and I think Al Sharpton is the, is the king of all black media. But I got to tell you, Ted, there is a crisis in America, and I've been talking about it on the radio for years and years. Just take this from the Bureau of Justice Statistics. The white homicide rate among white people in the United States, 3.2 per 100,000. 3.2 per 100,000. For black people, 21.3 per 100,000. If you're just looking at black males, 46.1. 46 homicides per 100,000. Whereas with white people, it's 3.2 homicides per 100,000 people. That is, so like 3.2 for white people, but male and female. Just look at black males, ABC News number I'm looking at here, 46 per 100,000. Now, that's gigantic. And then the black on white crime, which the news media never covers because, they say, like the FBI director said, the biggest threat to America is white supremacists. All evidence to the contrary. 10,000 black people will be murdered this year. Now, I got to say, Tad is... I understand completely telling you about Savannah, and they go to see the Savannah Bananas car broken into repeatedly. And look, Democrats, they got this catch and release thing. Now, I mean, if you catch a fish in the Potomac River and it's over your limit, they'll put the cuffs on you and take you away. You'll be in big trouble. It'll cost you a lot of money out of your pocket. But when they catch criminals, when the police catch criminals, the Democrats don't like the police. They like criminals. So they say, well, let's let the criminals go. Let's put them back on the street. Doesn't matter if their own mother says that the guy is such a psychopath that he should be involuntarily sent to an institution and not allowed to leave, which is what happened in this case in Charlotte. The crazy person, DeCarlos Brown Jr., stabbed to death this Ukrainian refugee, Irina Zarutska. And it turns out mom had been pleading with the state to institutionalize her crazy, violent son. And she pointed out that he's become more violent lately and all of this stuff. And Tad said, talking about black on white crime and so on. And if we had any black leadership in this country, and we most certainly do not, Barack Obama does not qualify. He's never been a black leader. He was never a good leader for black people in America, not for a minute. I guess winning the election and being sworn in as president, that served black people pretty well, I think. But then he did nothing for anybody because he's, I don't know, too busy chasing Larry Sinclair around a table or something like that. But and then who do we have beyond that? Who are the Democrats that are black and supposed to be leaders? But the Reverend Al Sharpton, I was the only place my mind goes. Who else is there? And yeah, I don't know, sports and music, people who don't generally play the role of role model. Let's say, let's go to soundbite number 9, Charlie Kirk. Now, but I'm talking a tad rather. There's so much to talk about. One of the things that I point out, and I've been talking about this since I started doing radio, and living in Washington D.C. and on and on. I crunch a lot of numbers, and I looked up I tried to find the number of black homicides for 2024, and they said they're still tabulating the numbers 9 months later, still tabulating the numbers. The most recent year for which there are good numbers, 2023, says that there were, in the United States of America, number of black people that were murdered, 12,276. Line up 12,276 people. Fill a stadium with 12,276 people. The number of white people murdered was 9,375. But there are 6 times as many white people as there are black people. So in order to be proportionate, you know the rest. But 12,000 in 2023, 12,276 black people murdered. And in the entire Vietnam War, the number of black Americans that were killed in the Vietnam War fighting communism, 7,243. So I've been pointing this out for years. Every year in the United States of America, more black people are murdered than there were black people that died in the entire Vietnam War. Isn't that amazing? That should be a big deal. If we had any black, we got the governor of Maryland as a black guy, and he could speak up, but he put out a video today saying he wants to run for re-election as governor and insisting to the news media who adore him that he's not running for president in 2028. But that means he's definitely running for president in 2028. Whatever he says, assume the opposite is true. He's a Democrat. Now, let's go to Charlie Kirk, because he's talking about the murder in Charlotte, North Carolina, the stabbing of the 23-year-old Ukrainian refugee woman who was mercilessly slaughtered by a crazed, mentally ill DeCarlos Brown Jr., stabbing her on the public train there where there was no security, but there were cameras so everybody can watch it. Isn't that amazing? Now, Brown's mother, whose name is Tracy DeWitt, doesn't have the same last name, told local news outlets that after Brown, her son, DeCarlos Brown, was diagnosed with schizophrenia during an earlier 2-week involuntary commitment. He had been involuntarily committed to the loony bin. He became so aggressive that she had to kick him out of her home. So he had been involuntarily committed to a mental, crazy and insane asylum. And then he got out, came home to mom in his 30s, naturally. And mom had to kick him out because she said he became so aggressive. She said the system failed him and ultimately failed to protect the public. Now, this is amazing stuff. The DeWitt, the mother, told CNN, she went on CNN, of course, which, tells you everything you need to know, that she tried to place him in a long-term facility, but could not because she wasn't his legal guardian, just being his mother, but not his legal guardian because he's an adult and everything. And her attempts failed. In January of this year, 2025, DeCarlos Brown was arrested once again for misusing the 911 system, and Democrats say, oh, that's no big deal, during which time he exhibited delusional behavior consistent with his diagnosis as a schizophrenic. A judge, a Democrat judge, had ordered a mental evaluation, but Brown was released. He was released. And then the lunatic, violent criminal, even his mother says so, was let loose back on the public. Charlie Kirk talking about the stabbing of the Ukrainian woman. And this is kind of amazing because Charlie Kirk posted the video, and then CNN played the video. And they had their panel, including the communist, Van Jones, who's a black guy who shaves his head. And they go to him and say, well, what about what Charlie Kirk just said?
A white Ukrainian refugee was murdered just because she was white. Everybody knows that, obviously. If a random white person simply walked up to and stabbed a nice, law-abiding black person for no reason, it would be an apocalyptically huge national story used to impose national sweeping political changes on the whole country. Instead, no one seems to care when a white woman gets stabbed to death.
Yeah, he said the word white there because that's largely what the story is about. And what did Carlos say in the video? We'll play that for you coming up. Van Jones is another free ride through the Ivy League, Democrat, self-described communist, brought into the Obama administration because he was a self-described communist. Van Jones, sitting on the set at CNN, was asked, whoa, Charlie Kirk just said that. Oh, no, he said the word white.
We don't know why that man did what he did.
We don't?
And for Charlie Kirk to say, we know he did it because she's white, when there's no evidence of that.
No
it's
evidence.
Just pure race mongering, hate mongering. It's wrong. Then he says that if something like that had happened the other way, there would be sweeping changes imposed on society. Where is the George Floyd Policing Act? It didn't pass.
What? Well, how about the riots? Did the riots pass? Did the arson pass? Did the couple dozen murders during the Black Lives Matter, George Floyd riots, did they count? Did they? Van Jones, he's a black leader. He's on CNN. Maybe he should talk about the 12,000 homicides a year, greater than the number of black people killed in the Vietnam War every single year. And they don't care. What was that? That racial, what? And yeah, Charlie Kirk, there's no evidence at all, none whatsoever. And maybe now we should play DeCarlos, because this is video of DeCarlos Brown Jr., video from the stabbing, from the crime scene, the murder scene, and you hear him saying over and over again, I got that white girl, I got that white girl. I got that white girl, I got that white girl. That's, no, I mean, he's crazy, and the Democrats put him on the street. But there is, and there's no reason to believe. They don't follow the news. They don't do their homework. They don't do research. They just parrot the radical left-wing killer criminal party line on everything. Here's Van Jones, still a communist.
It's not about cashless bail or no cashless bail. It's about the fact that we don't know how to deal with people who are hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people. What happened was horrible, but it becomes an opportunity for people to jump on bandwagons.
He was, and you're on the bandwagon. We don't know how to deal with hurting people, and he was the murderer. Now is that he's expressing his deep concern and compassion, his heartfelt feeling for the butcher, for the mentally ill career criminal, psychopath whose mother wanted him put in a mental institution, but the Democrats running the show would have none of that. And you hear the compassion. How do you help someone who's hurting like him? You throw him in the hoosgow, and you lock the door, and you deal with the threat to society. And look, the sidewalks of Washington, D.C. have been full of these mentally ill, crazy, muscle-bound people just out of prison. And, you know, we wait for the mentally ill people to commit crimes, and then we put them in prison. And then when they're done there with an early release, thanks to Democrats, we throw them back on the street again until they commit another crime, and then we throw them in jail again. And this is because in the 1950s, the Democrats the government ran such horror shows of mental institutions that there was a movement to shut down all the mental institutions because the government did such a terrible job. Now, CNN inexplicably brought back Brian Seltzerwater, the Humpty Dumpty guy. And he's got something on CNN. And listen to him, how the story of the murder of this Ukrainian refugee woman, murdered mercilessly by a black guy, and this is all they see. They're the ones who create the racial division. And then if anybody mentions that the black guy killed a white lady just randomly out of the blue for no reason, there were black people on the train car, and he didn't attack any of them. And then he says, I got that white lady or white girl. I got that white girl. I got that white girl. And and then the Ivy League educated Van Jones from the Obama White House says there's no reason to believe that race had anything to do with this. And their heads are wedged so far into their own dark and remote locations. Here's Brian Seltzerwater, how the story trickled up, he says. Because it was social media, Republicans, conservatives on social media that said, and when they released the video on Friday of this massacre, and they said, well, wait a minute, what's going on with this crazy crime in another Democrat city? And here's Seltzerwater.
Over the weekend, Elon Musk, Charlie Kirk, other Trump-aligned figures succeeded in making this senseless death a symbol of big city crime. That's exactly what has happened here. This story has trickled up from local news to social media and now to the president's attention. And it's being used, as you said, Brianna, as a political symbol, with MAGA media calling for more forceful punishments and more incarceration.
Matt, what you mean, enforcing the law and not putting criminally insane, schizophrenic career criminals back on the street after they commit every crime, which is what you guys do. And you see how he immediately politicizes it, polarizes it. So Van Jones polarizing along race lines of race, which is his role at CNN and always has been, was his role in the Obama White House. And he cites, Musk and Kirk. And that's, Trump, Trump, Trump. And the drumbeat. You know, he's already been shot once. Another guy who tried to shoot him is on trial today, picking the jury. And it's MAGA. Well, you know what MAGA was doing, Brian Seltzerwater? Covering the news that you're not covering. And it trickled up to you. It trickled down to you. It's not like you're the apex of anything. Seltzerwater.
I have to say, some of the replies to Musk, some of the comments around this story are baldly racist, stoking fear of African Americans because this man attacked a white woman. The open racism on sites like X today, it's eye-popping. But there are also legitimate questions about this so-called career criminal, someone who had been a repeat offender. And those questions, I hope they're not lost amid all of the cesspool kind of comments on social media.
The internet, people say unsavory things in the comment section on the internet. Shall we, Brian Seltzerwater, take a look at maybe another Democrat? Well, let's look at the CNN comments. Let's do that. Amazing stuff. Now, speaking of amazing stuff, CBS News, what's his name? Tony Doklupil, actually covered the story almost like it was a news story.
Now to a senseless attack on a Ukrainian refugee in this country. 23-year-old Irina Zarutska, was killed last month in Charlotte, North Carolina on the light rail in what officials are calling a random attack. New surveillance video shows exactly what happened. We're not going to show you the moment of the stabbing, but a warning, this footage is still disturbing.
Even when we don't show it, it's kind of disturbing. And they didn't notice. They didn't notice anything. But I've got to say, CBS News, you got a reporter named Skylar Henry.
It's just before 10 p.m. on August 22nd, and 34-year-old DeCarlos Brown Jr. is seated on a Charlotte light rail train. Several other people are around him. According to officials, a few minutes later, the train doors open, and 23-year-old Irina Zarutska gets on and takes a seat in front of Brown. She's wearing what appears to be a work uniform, AirPods, and looking at her phone. But then, the unthinkable happens. You see Brown pull out what officials say was a pocket knife. He unfolds it, then stands up behind Zarutska. What we aren't showing you is the moment where Brown then stabs Zarutska several times, then walks away.
Yeah, saying, I got that white girl, I got that white girl. But the news media omits all of that because it doesn't serve the interests of the Democratic Party. The narrative must prevail. That's what information dominance is all about. There's more coming up on these people, too, these Democrats. You know, big wireless is pulling one over on all of us, and they have been for quite some time. It's time to make the switch to consumer cellular. Listen, I made the switch. I'm getting the same fast, reliable, nationwide, big wireless coverage, same towers, same transmitters, without the big wireless costs at the end of every month. Not just about saving money on my bill at the end of every month, although that does matter. It's also about not being used and abused by the big cell phone carriers. Do you have any idea how much data you use every month? I have no idea. You know, most people over 50 use less than 8 gigs of data every month. That doesn't cost the cell phone companies much. But Big Wireless, they shove you and everybody they can into an unlimited plan, and they make you pay for it because they need you to cover the cost of 19-year-olds who are using 10 times as much data as you're using. And if you're not using all that data, guess what? You're the one being used in this relationship. Had enough of that stuff? Switch to Consumer Cellular. They set me up with a service and a phone, and it's really easy to make the switch, I got to say. You call on the phone, and you talk to an actual person. You're not talking to a robot and using your touchpad. That person is based right here in the United States of America, not in some far-off land. Real human beings who are actually helpful. Only take you about 20 minutes to make the switch. So give them a call today and make the change. Call 1-800-760-0702. That's 800-760-0702. Yes, sir. Yeah, seltzer water. But they're not covering the story. Even when they are covering the story, they're not covering the story. And they went for weeks without mentioning it at all. And still all the major publications are just, we're not going to cover that. That doesn't work for the interest of the Democrat Party.
We don't know how to deal with people who are hurting in the way this man was hurting. Hurt people hurt people.
All right, I still haven't gotten to the Boston corrupt Democrat Muslim lady with her murderer. What's it, her brother? It's her husband. I'm sorry. It's her husband that's the murderer who's in prison. They're all Democrats. Let's go to the phones. Oh, no, look at the time. Look what I've done. I can't believe it. The clock ran out again. This happens every day. And I wanted to get to everybody on the line. But, as one caller saying, it's unfortunate to have to think this way, but that young lady should not have seated herself where she decided to seat herself. She was being open-minded and not being racist. And there you have it.